This is TechVibe Radio. It's your front row seat to Pittsburgh's technology and innovation ecosystem. TechVibe is brought to you by the generous support of Compunetics at compunetics.com, Chorus Call at choruscall.com, Highmark at highmark.com, Huntington Bank at huntington.com, the Kindling Culture Agency at thekindlingagency.com, PNC Bank at pnc.com, Savior at savior.com, and Studio Me at studiomeproductions.com. TechVibe proudly broadcasts from the Huntington Bank studios. Let's get the show on the road. Good morning, everybody. It's Jonathan Kirsting.
And this is Audrey Russo.
Audrey, it is time for some TechVibe Radio. It is our opportunity to give our listeners out there that front row seat to all the great stuff happening here in Pittsburgh's tech and innovation ecosystem. And I've been trying.
That's our job.
It is.
It's what we do. It's what we love.
We get fired up about because there's a lot to talk about. And that is something that has just been really driving Tech Council, our membership, our members in the region, has been everything around data centers and energy. And that's something that we're very excited about at the Tech Council. Last year, we held our first Data Center and Energy Innovation Summit, and we're on the heels of our second annual one because the demand was out there, and it's just right around the corner.
And the momentum has just been...
It's been crazy out there.
Just astronomical.
And just seeing, me on the outside, having written about a lot of this and everything, I'm just seeing all this opportunity out there for our members, but not just our members, but really just the whole region, from the whole state,
the whole state,
as to how data centers and energy can be something that is leveraged here in a very good and positive way. It gets me really excited. And as we're preparing for this summit, as part of our magazine, our TEQ News magazine, you always put together your President's Note. I think you really articulate some really great points in your President's Note about why the Tech Council is getting behind data centers and behind the energy it takes and to make these data centers run and just the world in general to run. The thing that really struck me, and I thought, we got to talk about this on air, is that you're not looking at declaring a victory lap around anything, but really looking at the opportunities, but also addressing the concerns as well, too, of so many people out there. Because the last thing we want is for communities to be hurt or anything like that. So that's where I'm setting the stage on this. And just so our listeners know that we do have this really big summit coming up, and we're expecting 500-600 people to be able to talk about what are the opportunities, what are the risks, what are the concerns. It's not just let's make a ton of money. It's all about how can we do something responsibly and do something that really benefits the entire region and actually state. And when you look at the amount of energy and things that we can do here, it doesn't just benefit the state. It benefits the country, as far as I'm concerned. So I take it from there. But really, Audrey, so what was your mindset? You lead the Tech Council here. You're making the strategic decisions for how we get behind stuff. And you see the importance of this. What was the first thing that really struck you as we get this back and forth going on today?
There's never one thing, right? But when you think of the stack, you think of the stack, and everyone uses the term infrastructure quite loosely.
Yeah.
But when you think of the backbone simultaneously to what's required as we move into this period of just rapid transformation in terms of requirements.
Exactly.
Let's not, you can talk about artificial intelligence, you can talk about quantum, you can talk about all that, but simultaneously, what's happened is the amount of energy that all this takes. So here we are in southwestern Pennsylvania in particular, we're sitting on a lot of energy, right? We're physically sitting on energy. It's extraction. It includes Westinghouse with nuclear. We have competencies here that run the gamut.
In a history as well, too. Which
I
think is
competencies,
so
right.
It goes back to George Westinghouse literally inventing the grid, for lack of a better term, here in the Pittsburgh region.
So we have historical, we have physical, we have an interesting topography, which I love because we're not flat. So, that presents some fascinating issues for the region, both when manufacturers want to come in and build. It's not always that easy, right? You've got legacy of mines that have been left in ruin. It's a very complex kind of geography, and which is so ironic because you just go right over the border and all of a sudden everything goes flat. Ohio goes flat.
We got crinkled,
think there's a couple of
here.
places in Ohio that have some rolling hills, but Other than that, it just absolutely goes like into a mesa. And in Ohio, they've been able to, through a lot of reasons, both from their political priorities and policies, they have been able to accelerate the attraction of businesses to Ohio. Accelerate. Now, we can get inside of that, and some of that is true, some of that is not true. Some of it is because they have B to C corporations that are there, where we're more B to B, B to business, business to business. But the bottom line is that this amount of computing is not going away. So it just isn't.
Yeah, it's got.
So we can dig our heels in, and we can say no. We can say, as a region, that it's environmentally a pollutant, it's noise. There's issues around noise. There's issues around light. There's been research that's saying data centers emit light at night that cause problems in the atmosphere, and there should be protection around light.
Yeah, there's like a stat that's something like 42% of Pennsylvania is really, they don't really want a data center near their community. That's a scary number.
And part of that is that we're moving so fast. Even though people like you and I, Jonathan, we're moving slow.
Exactly.
Right?
Oh, I know.
You and I will be saying, we're not moving that fast.
We're not. Exactly.
Just go to Northern Virginia or go to Ohio, and you'll be like, Pennsylvania isn't doing anything. But what's moving fast is the technology and people adopting technology and people building companies and requiring that they have this kind of infrastructure right at their fingertips so that they can build. So we are losing in terms of attraction of the opportunities for the new world of technology. That doesn't mean that we're not being sensitive to agriculture, that we're not being cognizant of deep roots in other kinds of industries. But if you're in manufacturing, if you're in working at a bank, you require that you need this kind of computing power.
So you said,
it is like a railroad.
Yeah.
I just can only use it like the example of a railroad. I don't want a railroad running through my backyard. None of us really do and did. And we see what's happened when there's railroads really close to where people live, et cetera. But we still built railroads. And there's still a demand for and a lot of narrative about people saying, why doesn't America have a lot of rail? Why isn't there high-speed rail?
Exactly.
What happened in California when there was supposed to be high-speed rail running from north to south? What happened to that project, et cetera? What happened here when I first started here? Maglev, the magnetic levitation, what happened there? It's not going away. It's not going away.
And we have the opportunity now to actually embrace that and build on that and create jobs and wealth for people.
Part of it is we're not doing a great job of having conversations.
Exactly. Okay.
And the conversations are really educating people on what that means. And what does it mean to have a data center in part of the Mon Valley where there's no tax base? And then you have an opportunity for tax base.
Yeah, these are all good things.
And what will that do?
Yeah.
So we're at a point, what I love is we're at a point of having a conversation and bringing these conversations together instead of being polarized.
I love the idea of conversations because that's where solutions are found. And that's why I'm excited about our summit that's happening on March the 27th is because, say, 600 people having a conversation. And with elected officials and so forth. So to me, that gets me very excited. If you want to learn more about that, go to pghtech.org, because this is a really big deal and a very big opportunity, we believe, for the region and for not just tech companies and energy companies, but the way that scales out. There's some impact. Yeah, and we're going to talk more about that when we get back, which I'm very excited about. Because Audrey, you always like having the conversations, which I think is just so important.
Wow.
Bring people together and figure out what's going to work for everybody. Because I mean, you made an important point there, Audrey, when you said it's like the railroad. We're going to have these things, and we can actually have them in ways that can be productive and good. So we'll get back to that. We're taking a quick break. It's Jonathan Kirsten.
And this is Audrey Russo.
And we are from the Pittsburgh Technology Council. And like I said, pghtech.org. We love helping tech companies succeed. And we'll be right back on the flip side of this quick break. Studio Me Productions is a full-service video production company based in Pittsburgh. It offers custom video production services, podcast studio rentals, and communication studio build-outs. Choosing Studio Me Productions means investing in a partnership that values creativity and delivers results that exceed expectations. With a deep understanding of marketing and storytelling, Studio Me ensures your project will captivate and engage your viewers. Learn more at studiomeproductions.com. That's studiomeproductions.com. A strong work culture is the invisible force that binds employees to each other, to the company, and to their work. It's linked to better business outcomes, happier employees, and increased retention. How we work and where we work continue to evolve in almost every way, yet our human need for connection and purpose remains. Help your employees connect and thrive by evolving your culture to support your team, regardless of how or where they work. So discover how the Kindling Culture Agency can transform your company's culture at sparksomething.big.com. That's the Kindling Culture Agency at sparksomething.big.com. Compunetics is the leading developer of unified voice, video, and data collaboration and conferencing applications for the service provider, government, and unique workflow applications. The Summit Olympus and Evergreen platforms, driven by their encrypted user interfaces, enable powerful and secure collaboration. Combined with world-class support and innovative professional services, Compunetics delivers the right solution every time. Learn more at compunetics.com. This is TechVibe Radio, your front row seat to Pittsburgh's technology and innovation economy. TechVibe is brought to you by Compunetics at compunetics.com, Chorus Call at choruscall.com, Highmark at highmark.com, Huntington Bank at huntington.com, Kindling at thekindlingagency.com, PNC Bank at pnc.com, and Savior at savior.com. TechVibe proudly broadcasts from the Huntington Bank studios. Audrey, we are back having a great time this Sunday morning. It's always great to have this opportunity to talk about what's happening here in Pittsburgh's tech sector. Normally, we have one of our guests on one of our cool tech companies, entrepreneur coming in to talk about what they're building. But today we're talking about what the region could be building when it comes to all things around data centers and energy. And of course, we have our upcoming Data Center and Energy Summit happening on March the 27th. Massive event. Very excited to be holding this to provide some conversations as we just left our last segment. And you being someone I know, Audrey, loves having conversations with people, all about understanding and having honest conversations. Oh my God, I think we forget about that. Gosh forbid. But anyhow, I'm glad to be back here picking your brain on some insights here. You put together this really nice piece for our TEQ magazine that is covering all things around data centers. And you bring some very thoughtful points around what's happening with the opportunities here and how this is happening one way or the other. We're not producing less data. We're not going to be needing less energy anytime soon. And our region is very nicely poised to do this in a very good, positive way. Not just the region, but the state, as far as that is. Yeah, let's keep going on this.
Yeah, I think the point that you made earlier before the break, where you referenced a point that I mentioned in the article, that 42% of people are across the state are not pro having data centers. And we've probably as a state, and which happens often, and particularly when things seem to move fast and seem to move slow at the same time.
Isn't that weird how that happens?
It is. It's like it moves so slow. And then some things just move so rapidly that you don't think that you can put any kind of reins to it.
Exactly.
42%, that seems high, even if it's statistically significant.
Sure.
Still seems high, right?
Yeah.
So my thesis is that we're not having enough conversations. And conversations mean everything from town hall to education to understanding the impact to doing research to thinking about communities that, particularly in Pennsylvania and southwestern Pennsylvania, and actually the southern tier of most of Pennsylvania, until you get to Philly, are rural. And many of them have relied on manufacturing, simple manufacturing to advanced manufacturing. Many of these companies are feeders into they're the components of data centers and components of energy.
The whole supply chain that goes into this.
The whole supply chain is exactly right, is sitting right here. And yet we as a whole in southwestern Pennsylvania, as well as even Philly, the population is flat. Philly has a little bit more growth than we do, but Philly has a
Still,
significantly high poverty rate. Very high. I think it's the top in the nation
is it
in
really?
terms
Okay.
of number of people
Yeah.
that are in poverty, that lie in that Philly area. The world is moving fast. We have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to create a tax base that we haven't had. We have an opportunity for the trades that they haven't had in a long time to allow them to have maybe 6, 7, 10, 12 years worth of work in working in a world that's heavily capitalized, lots of investors from all over the world, and to have these things in our backyard.
Yeah.
And having it in our backyard makes us more attractive as we think of innovation and data centers, innovation and technology. And as we move into quantum, we're going to need this. And I used the example before when we were talking about railroads. It happened. We needed them. It was a part of transport. It's part of our infrastructure. This is the infrastructure of the 22nd century.
100%.
It just is.
Yeah.
And I am not saying that I want trees to be taken down. I want white noise to be going on all the time. That I want our water not to be safe. No. I think both of those things can be things that we want.
And they can all live in the same world.
And I think we can move in the same world. And I think that tension will create some solutions that we hadn't thought of.
See, that's interesting. I love being able to talk about, like, where could there be solutions that come out of this? Because last time I checked, human beings are pretty creative, right? Whenever there's a problem to be solved, we tend to find ways to solve it.
Right.
With unique
The use of
technologies.
water in data centers, big for cooling. There is a lot of reuse that's going on, right? There is reuse. I don't know what the cycle time is. If it's definitely not in perpetuity, but it's definitely reuse. We have people who are looking at wind. We have people here who are trying again to look at storage and for alternatives, trying to figure out
all
that.
day long,
These
for
are
sure.
These are big problems, but they're big opportunities. My question is, and it's in a rhetorical and even Socratic way, is if we do nothing, then what happens to us?
Exactly, yeah.
And that's the thing that really gets to where I think we need to think about in terms of economic development and prosperity.
Yeah.
What happens to us?
I agree, because we see this opportunity right here in front of us. It's something that we could actually take, and to say we're not going to take a bite at that apple seems like we could potentially miss something very big, because the world is going this direction. Like, we keep going back to, no one's going to be using less energy, less AI.
And if we don't do it,
yeah,
other states will do it.
they're going to jump
So
right
the
on.
question is, what do we want in terms of prosperity for our state? What do we want? And if we want to just have a bunch of communities that have been left out, and we want talented tradespeople to have opportunities or not, or maybe they move to places somewhere else,
where they're going to be building these things, exactly.
They can move to Texas instead of trying to keep their communities intact, then we will have wastelands. And we've already experienced those wastelands through the exodus of manufacturing in the 60s.
We're just now feeling like we're coming back from that.
And now and now here we are 50 years later, and we're saying, wait a second, are we going to miss this again? Now, I'm not against any kinds of controls and things that look at emissions and look at things to make sure that we are breathing clean air, etc.
You know what's interesting is I actually live very close to a data center.
You do?
I live in Edgewood.
You live right there.
I am like 3 blocks from the I Am Critical data center up on Britton Road.
And most people probably don't even know it's there.
You don't know it's there unless because there's a little tiny sign. I'm like,
heavily secured.
I actually told them you should make your sign bigger.
No, it's heavily secured.
Yeah.
And yes, you're right. There's not a lot of people that are inside that data center.
Right.
That's absolutely true. But the pieces and parts that go into that data center in terms of the upkeep of that data center and all the components and all the little bells and whistles that it takes to make that efficient and make that optimized all come from manufacturers.
Exactly.
And they come from manufacturers. They come from manufacturers nearby and many of them from afar. So I thought we were talking about national security in some of these conversations around data centers.
That's another
So
great point.
why are we not looking at making sure that we're planting those manufacturers near the opportunities?
That's what I'm saying. There's so much to explore.
Again, it's not being anti-environmental. It's not saying that we just want to be greedy. It's saying this is happening.
This is happening.
And we may have been late to the table in Pennsylvania. We may have been. We may be catching up. But if we don't, just like I mentioned when we started, if we don't have a railroad stop here, what does that mean?
Exactly. And just for note, I do have a railroad right in front of my house, and actually it doesn't bother me at all. It puts me to sleep at night, but I digress. But this is exactly why we have this summit coming up, is because it explores conversations like this. So we can get policy aligned in the right ways, get people aligned in the right ways.
It's never going to be perfect.
It's
never going to be perfect. It
Exactly.
isn't. And I really appreciate the fact of having these varied perspectives and trying to balance that out. But I ask everyone, if not, then what?
I love it. Let's end on that note right there. Audrey, so much fun to talk with you today, because I
Thank
love
you.
getting this. I want to keep talking, but we're out of
Thank
time.
you.
But I encourage everybody, go to our website, pghtech.org, learn all about the Tech Council and how we're trying to do work around things like data centers and energy. And we'll catch you on the next one. Jonathan Kirsting.
And this is Audrey Russo.
Have a great Sunday, everybody. And once again, pghtech.org. Thanks for geeking out with us on TechVibe Radio. Tune in next Sunday for more tech and innovation stories right here from Pittsburgh. Get Tech Vibe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss a show. Tech Vibe is brought to you by the generous support of Compunetics at compunetics.com, Chorus Call at choruscall.com, Highmark at highmark.com, Huntington Bank at huntington.com, The Kindling Culture Agency at thekindlingagency.com, PNC Bank at pnc.com, Savior at savior.com, and Studio Me at studiomeproductions.com. Tech Vibe proudly broadcasts from the Huntington Bank Studios.